Agricultural and climate experts are coming under great pressure as more governments declare carbon neutral targets. They know that even using conventional 100-year greenhouse gas accounting, methane packs a big punch. So any industry that releases methane will suffer what they believe to be disproportionate penalties. Red meat and dairy producers in particular are scrambling to gain support for any means to reduce their exposure. They know that their products will bring higher carbon taxes or more substantial offsets. When I worked for state government, I witnessed the revolving door of scientists moving between government and industry. The culture is that government scientists are there to support industry, so there is strong but almost unconscious pressure to side with industry. In fact, the climate research group I worked with accepted substantial research contracts from Meat and Livestock Australia every year. So support for this research is intimately linked with industry. A clear example is the work done by FAO. There was heavy involvement of industry there, mostly because industry had the expertise. But that makes it almost impossible to avoid bias. Likewise, even researchers at arm's length from industry are not immune from this pressure. Some research groups are supporting new metrics that downplay the impact of methane, such as the global temperature potential and GWP star. These appear to be attempts to legitimise animal agriculture. Sadly, movements such as Alan Savory's holistic grazing have misled producers into believing that animal emissions can be offset by soil improvements. This is good for soil and be useful to arrest the long-term decline in pasture soil carbon. But for most of the world's pastures, this is a fantasy. Many studies have shown now that emissions cannot be offset with equal or greater levels of animal production. You can have either greater soil carbon or greater production, but not both, without high levels of inputs, mostly fertiliser and more productive pasture grasses. So when independent researchers such as Salish Rao comes out with papers that advocate the use of shorter-term greenhouse accounting and include other factors such as foregone sequestration, these figures are just so wildly different to industry figures they are almost automatically dismissed. The one argument for downplaying the impact of methane is that methane emissions now won't make a huge difference to eventual temperatures in a few centuries' time. Although even this argument is losing its strength because atmospheric methane is actually increasing quite rapidly. But the critical issue is this: controlling methane is the only means we have to slow warming in coming decades. Some studies show that moderate reductions in methane will buy us 1 or 2 decades more time to deal with fossil fuels. But the two key points that everyone is missing here are these. Firstly, scientists do not believe that we can reduce animal agricultural emissions, so they seek to legitimise an ongoing level of emissions. Secondly, they do not believe that we could remove grazing animals from pastures to allow sequestration. But these beliefs are swiftly being overtaken by events. The movement towards plant proteins is dramatically changing the food landscape, with futurist think tank Rethink X reporting that red meat and dairy industries will be bankrupt and out of business within a decade due to the meteoric rise of alternative proteins. So I challenge those climate scientists with the resources to model a world with greatly reduced or no animal agriculture. Climate modelling will avoid the 20 versus 100 year arguments. It will simply show the impact through time. Methane reduction through drastically reduced herd numbers, combined with legacy carbon sequestration and the drop in fires, come as a package in a plant-based world. Let's see some modelling of that future. I'm sure it'll be a bright one. The impact on climate and biodiversity loss alone would be profound.